G'day, Grey Nomad here. There's a list of 10 questions going around the various homesteading channels, so I thought I'd participate. There's two lists in fact that I know of. One was started, I think, by Josh at InYa Homesteading, and the other one by Kettle Farms. I've chosen Josh's. If I haven't got the right person that started it, set me straight down below. But I've chosen Josh's because those questions I think were easier for me to, or more appropriate for me to answer. So let's make a start. Number one, how long have you been homesteading or living a frugal life? Well, I'm a little bit of an imposter in the homesteading stakes, I think. I'm not totally convinced what we do is homesteading. But we have been living frugal for a long time. In fact, most of our adult life, I've got to say, even after we paid off the first house, we never really did anything ridiculous with the money. We never bought new cars, never went on big holidays. We just saved our money or spent it on useful things. But I'd say definitely that started about 20 years ago when we sold everything and hit the road. And then of course we only had the money we got from our house sales to live on, so we had to be pretty frugal after that. What country are you from and where are you now? Plus, why did you choose the location you are at now? Well, I'm Australian. Mrs. Grey Nomad is from the UK, English. What was the rest of the question? Where are you now? Well, I know where I am now. I'm in Australia. We're both in Australia. Central Queensland to be precise, around Bundaberg for those who know the area. We're here because my parents lived in this area, and when my dad died he left us a few bob. And to stop me from spending it on cameras and things, my wife decided we should buy some property. We looked at property up on the Northern Territory at Adelaide River and just to be different down in Tasmania. Two properties were about as different as you could possibly get and still be in Australia. The hottest place, or the most humid place in Australia, and one of the coldest places. But we chose this one partly because of the climate, but partly because for a couple of $100 we could just rent a U-Haul van and bring our stuff out here and it'd be job done. So that's why we're here. Number three, if you could grow only one fruit and one vegetable, what would they be and why? Well, one fruit I would say probably bananas, and we can grow them here quite well apparently. Plenty of people do. Vegetable will have to be a potato, partly because I really don't eat vegetables, with the one exception is potatoes, which that's a bit unusual for someone in this game I suppose, not eating vegetables, but I hardly eat any at all. Well, my wife puts them into things, but I couldn't just chow down on a carrot or something. So yeah, if we could grow one vegetable, and I'll probably get onto that later on, that would have to be the potato. Number four, give your one best tip for living a frugal life. Well, let's say there's got to be only buy when things are on special, and then buy them all. So, you know, our diets change over the years, but at any one time we eat a certain number of things, and we only go into town 4 or 5 times a year, if that. Into the big town anyway, go to the local one a bit more often. And if we see something that we eat, it's on special, then we just clear out the shelf, pretty much take the lot. So I guess that's one tip for frugal living. Just only buy stuff when it's cheap. If you've got to buy it at all, try and make it, of course, if you can, but if you have to buy stuff, only buy when it's on special. Number five, give your one best tip for homestead living. Well, as I said, I'm not convinced we're really homesteading. All I can really come up with is if you're used to the normal city-style city-style life, with all the trimmings and the golf clubs and whatever, then you better probably be prepared to drop all that. It's not a worse standard of living, it's just a different standard of living, and in fact it's probably better in most ways. But so just be prepared to live differently. I'd say that's probably it. Number 6. Tell us something about you that we would never have guessed. Well, I used to work as a safe hand courier with Department of Foreign Affairs, and that's basically diplomatic mail. I used to take diplomatic mail all around Australia. That's a top secret job. And in line with being top secret, those of you who know what ASIO is, that's Australia's version of the CIA. I designed a lot of the electronics for the building control system in their head office many years ago. Another top secret job. So I guess that's a couple of things that not many people know. Number 7. What did you do before this style of living? Example, job or lifestyle? Well, I never finished school. I went overseas basically as soon as leaving school. Wound up in photography, did photography for 6 or 7 years, got interested in electronics, and spent probably the majority of my adult life, up until when I quit at 45, working in electronics. And from there on, the hardware right down the nitty-gritty of even designing the insides of chips. I wound up, when I left in the late 90s, writing fuzzy logic algorithms for name search programs and databases and the like. And it's partly because of that sort of work, which is pretty well paid, that I was able to pull the plug at 45 and hit the road, and we spent 20 years travelling after that basically. Tell us about your style of growing methods and why you use that method for growing crops. Well, the only growing we've done so far was a couple of years ago, and that was a fairly standard garden, you know, in the ground with a tractor to rip up the ground and forks and whatever. But that required a lot of water, and it was a joint venture with my neighbour, and we just basically drained his dam doing it. Worked well, but that's just not an option. We don't have a dam here, we don't have a bore, and since that time, a couple of years ago, there's been bugger all rain. So the only option I think I'm going to have, or one of the main options, is probably wicking beds, and I've got some half made at the moment. Another option might be hydroponics or even aquaponics, because they're kind of a closed system. They wouldn't use much water, I think. But whatever I do, it's got to use absolutely bugger all water, because we just haven't got any. List the main crops, trees or produce you grow, and tell us something you don't currently grow but would love to try growing. Well, kind of covered that. We're not really growing anything at the moment. I would like to grow, when we get into this more, I want to grow potatoes, as I've already mentioned. Pumpkins is another thing. I actually can't stand pumpkins. If I was to eat a bit of roast pumpkin, I'd probably barf on the spot. But pumpkin soup I love, so go figure. So I would like to try growing pumpkins, and I really shouldn't say try, because we did it in that previous garden I mentioned and it worked just fine. But I haven't done it on this property here, which is a couple hundred yards away, and that's not far, but the soil over 200 yards away is nice soil, and where our house is just rock. So that was number 9. Number 10. Give us any links to find out more about you and your homestead or frugal living, and links to anything that you sell, and tell us why your channel is unique. Well, I'm not convinced mine is particularly unique. I mean, all channels are unique, aren't they? We all do our own thing. I do, in theory, sell photos on my website. Used to sell a lot, but that hasn't really happened for many years now. The website is robgray.com. Pretty simple. I'll put a link down below. Feel free to buy a photo, but I don't think people buy photos on the internet anymore. There's so many free photos around, and everybody with a phone's a photographer anyway. So on that website there's over 20 years of blogs. I've been blogging almost since the word was invented. Some people find that interesting reading. I'm sure buried in there's quite a lot of tips, but I wouldn't like to try and find them. So that's about it, I think. Give us any links to find out more about your homestead, blah, blah, blah. Well, the blog covers all that, I think, if you've got a couple of days with nothing to do, and I'm sure nobody does, but feel free to go and read that. So that's it. That's the 10 questions. I don't know if I answered them that well, but it'll have to do. So from me, it's Grey Nomad out.